Thank you, gentlemen. What we're all here for is about numbers games, right? Everything's a numbers game. Everybody here is pretty much in sales. What do we need? More numbers. With Dan, our time together, we're optimistic about the future, what he's building. And with Steve, the time he's been working with me, yesterday he shared his income is about 5 times as high as it was about 2 years ago. It's all about the numbers game. By the way, can you hear me in the back?
A little hard.
This mic is we're being recorded today. So a lot of laughter. That's good. We need laugh tracks. I'll do my best to project, or at break, also look at getting the audio hooked up on here. All right. In any case, life, if you will, let me see if I can get this thing started here, begins as a numbers game. If you think about it, when the baby's born, what do you want to know? People want to know, besides the sex. Yeah, what's the baby weigh? Is the baby healthy? Right? What do you have to do in a couple weeks after the baby's born? Got to get the baby weighed again. It's all about weighing the baby. As we look at our our careers that we all have, it's really about monthly or annually. We have to weigh the baby. Are we progressing? And whose responsibility is it when the baby's really little? It's the parent's responsibility. And so what we're going to talk about today is as we grow from the baby business up into the next level, whose responsibility is that? Is it your manager's responsibility? Is it your responsibility? But the primary equipper of the mind, equipper for skills and of the mindset is really the parents at this young age. Now, I don't know if you know this, for the first 1 minute of birth, when the baby's born, if you look at the bottom of its foot, it says what it's going to be in the future. You ever know that? Yeah. This is not mine. This was the picture of my foot when it came out. My parents were elated. A realtor is born. We need more realtors, don't we?
Need the registration mark.
Yeah, I need the logo there. You're right. Yeah. But, so I was born to be a realtor. Who would have thought it, right? And, as Mary Engelbreit says, we need to bloom where we are planted, no matter what we're doing for a living. And when we look at the 80-20 rule, and we look at 80% of people, 20% of the business is done by 80% of the people. And today is about how to do it better. That's what my goal is, how to equip, how to refine. As we move forward, we have a baby business. We're looking to take it to the next level. And, then the child goes to school. And you can see in the back of his shirt, it says future salesperson. Now, we don't know what we're going to do when we're a teenager, most likely. But it's like our business. It continues to grow. Now, who's responsible at this point for the refining and equipping of the child? Well, now the teachers are there to help equipping with skill sets. The parents are there. And then there's refinement as well, because we got to work on the mind. My son is 17 years old, and one of my responsibilities is absolutely, the school is equipping his education. I'm part of his education, but the real equipping of his mind, because there's so much crud out there coming in at all times. The music, what's on television, maybe what friends do. So what's the father's responsibility at that point, or the mother's? And that's we got to continue to equip the child. Otherwise, they're equipping for themselves. And then as we move toward adult life, and it's where we all are now, and we have to look at who's the primary equipper for skill sets. Are you at the same pace today as you were back in the days of school in equipping yourself, skill building? Or do we just take a break because we get into what's called the comfort zone, or it might be called the familiar zone? We become familiar with where we're at. We no longer push ourselves, and reading is now an option. Because reading in school is not an option. Well, I guess it is. It won't get you very far. So today, really be the challenge to say that the primary equipper for ourselves in building our skills is the person sitting in your seat. I'm just a person today. You manager that you work with, right? We're helping to equip, but we have to do our part. And today I'll use the word part as an acronym, that we have to do plan, we have to schedule our activities, we need to revise and review our numbers, and then tweak it. And some people do their part once a year. They do revising and tweaking just one time a year. We're going to talk about how do you do that every 30 days. You know, an airplane from St. Louis to California is never on a straight line, ever. It's nonstop tweaking, and they got sophisticated computers flying that plane. So when we're looking at ourselves, how often should we tweak the plan? I really think it's every 30 days. And sometimes producers, all of us are producers, we're running so fast that we don't stop to tweak. And what happens is you just get so far off course. By the time the end of the year is up, we're nowhere near our financial goal. Anybody amen to that? Right? Yes. So today I'm going to ask you to do your part. I'm going to ask you to have a really open mind to say, is there some tweaking necessary in your life, specifically in the business plan we're going to talk about? Really be open-minded and to some change, because this is going to be a real paradigm shift. Back in the early 1990s, I was a manager with the Prudential office here in St. Louis. And when I took that chair, I was no longer a real estate salesperson out building my business. I was now interacting with teams and individual agents. And what I discovered sitting in that chair was a whole new mindset. And I realized that, first of all, I didn't like it. I did not like all the paperwork and things like that. I wanted to help people build their business, and I was doing so much of paperwork and having to recruit and making sure the phone duty schedule was on. I didn't have enough time to build, to lead people because I was so tied up with the other things. But what I discovered sitting in that chair, the manager's chair, watching agents struggling, was the business model that we independent contractors use has a big flaw in it. I found that the ownership mentality was the way to go. And we're going to unpack this concept today. Why do the owners get to sell their business when they're done? What do we do as realtors? When you're done, you walk away? Is that pretty much it? How many people do you know in the real estate business that have actually sold their business when they walked away? One. Kathy. I mean, I did it. I was able to sell my business. The goal was, as a realtor or as a lender, insurance, whatever our business is, can you sell it when you walk away? Can you cash flow from it? Or is it over? So we're going to really talk about that today, is look at what's the right business model. And again, this is kind of open forum, so if people have questions or comments or obscenities during this, feel free to jump in, right? But that's what we're going to unpack today, so please keep an open mind. Here's a thought for you. Imagine you were given 10,000 days. Age 25, you work till 65. You work 40 years. If you work 5 days a week, which is what realtors do, right? 5 days a week, or any independent contractor about 5 days a week. So imagine you worked 5 days a week, and you worked 250 days of the year. That times 40 years is exactly 10,000 days. So I want you to imagine, God gives you 10,000 days to work. Should we be debt-free if you had 10,000 tries at it? If somebody's starting off, my son's 17, one of the things that I mentor him about is about financial planning. He's 17, he's got $300, right? But the right disciplines start right now. And also about being productive in what he does versus all over the place. When a lot of real estate, a lot of salespeople are just all over the place. And if we look at every day for the gift that it is, to say we have 10,000, I've got about 3,450 left. of my 10,000 days. I'm about 6,500 or so days, if you count back from when I was 25 to where I'm at today. To do what? To hopefully be debt-free. And I've been there before, completely debt-free, and it felt pretty good. Now I've built up some things, whatever the case, but it's a easy goal to accomplish if we're disciplined and we're thinking about it. And what we're doing is tweaking our plan. Because again, like the plane, it's off course all the time. And it's so easy for a person without a coach or a mentor to get really off course. And I do not want that for my son, to get so far off course in life. A lot of tweaking. So I want you to really think about the goal here is having quality leads flowing into us. Because how many people for the rest of their career want to just chase leads? Prospecting is only for a season. And I know people who prospect all the time. And after today, we're going to look at prospecting only for a season, only for a short time, only when you need a jolt of business. But prospecting really should be set aside, which goes against our culture as salespeople. Because the goal is we network. And I'm not talking about going to meetings and handing out business cards, right? We're talking about effective ways to have businesses flowing into you and finding those lead sources. There's so many lead sources out there that have business just to send to you. We just got to make that presentation. And I want to share this thought. It's easier to find a lead generator than it is to become one. And we all struggle with lead generation. Does anybody here have, that's why we're here, isn't it? Enough leads that they don't need anymore, right? So unanimously, we pretty much need more leads, right? So what we're going to try to do today is unpack how do you find lead generators? Because it's much easier to find one than it is to become one, right? Excuse me, just for a second. Talk amongst yourselves. Any questions or comments? Okay. I think I'm going backwards. And as we get into this, we know as the child, each of us that were a child, growth was expected by others. And as we transfer this to adulthood, it's really amazing. Growth is no longer expected, it becomes optional. If you think about how often do people read a book any longer? And is it 2 a year? Because in school, they wouldn't let us get away with that. But as we become adults, we just back down to maybe a book or 2 a year. The challenge is, can you do a book a month? I've got some ideas to share with you as we go through today. And if you don't like to read, if you like to watch TV, if you could do that, I've got some ideas to share with you, that things that you could be watching for refining yourself, right? And there's a story about, in the War of 1812, the city of New Orleans was going to be attacked by the British. And if they essentially took New Orleans, they could divide the country, and the revolution would really have been over at that point. And here's what was happening in New Orleans. They knew the British were coming. And what they did is they pretty much figured out, how do we surrender? That's what was going to happen. The leadership there said basically, let's not fight, let's give it up. We'll just speak British, which is, come on guys, that's the same as American, English. We'd all have lovely accents. So General Andrew Jackson, he came in and he said basically, he took the same men, the same battle, the same enemy, in about a 2-month period before the British showed up, he changed their perspective. He equipped them with the skills through non-stop drilling, and then secondly, he equipped their mindset. What happened, the outcome of that war, of that battle, was 13 dead Americans. And we had a ragtag group of what? Farmers. We didn't have an organized militia like that. They were battle-proven British, had been in many wars. And we lost 13, they lost hundreds upon hundreds. And obviously we gained our freedom from that. And so today, as we come in here, my hope again is that we realize each of us can change our own outcome starting today with a new business model that Steve and Dan so passionately shared about. That it can happen quickly, change. It's a matter of, are you willing to do it? And are you, in your chair right now saying, well, these are good ideas, but I'm not going to change. There's a story, Dennis Waitley of The Psychology of Winning, if you heard that series before. He talks about an African tribe, and they were dying off early. So it was 1960s, 1970s, around that time frame. What was happening is these whole tribes were dying out early, and they were given three choices. They discovered that in the adobe huts that they had, that there were some insects that were getting into the inhabitants, and these people were dying off early. So they had three choices. One was move to a nearby village, knock down the existing huts and rebuild there, or change and do nothing. And they decided to change and do nothing. It was easier to die than it was to rebuild in that culture. The mindset was so entrenched, and I don't know where you all are, if you will. Where's your mind? How entrenched is it in your current situation? Are you comfortable in your familiar zone? And say, no matter what we talk about today, I will not change, because I don't need to change. Well, like the seed has no option to grow, does it? Put a seed in the ground to plant a tree. Is there any option? There's no option. It must grow. But we have the choice to not do it. So again, I'm hoping that with an open mind, you'll see what we're talking about today. All right? So dreams require three things: time, being equipped, and refining the mind. When I opened this up, I said life is a numbers game. And here's what, back in the 1980s when I started becoming a realtor, I went to my Gundaker manager and I said that, his name was Joe. Joe, I'm struggling here. Joe, I'm making no money at all. And I'm thinking I could get a regular job. And Joe said, Brian, it's a numbers game. You got to get out there. You just got to see more people. And it was a rah-rah encouraging thing, but I was not equipped. Nothing new happened there. So I went to the top producer in the office. Her name was Caroline. I went to Caroline and said, help me. I need more than just encouragement. She said, Brian, it's a crapshoot. So I think that's a numbers game. It's one of those things you can remember in a conversation. And she said it's a crapshoot. Brian, you got to see more people. You got to see more people. So I walked out of 2 meetings, and that was how I was struggling. I said, I can call on people. I'm a hunter by nature. People are either hunters or farmers. I'm a hunter by nature. I will go hunt, but somebody equip me, because I wasn't able to do any conversion. We'll talk about that this afternoon as well, about lead conversion. How do you convert what you chase? This morning is really about the chase, and then the conversion comes later. So with Joe's encouragement, I left the office. I needed to find a different leader, somebody that could help me. And my numbers back in the early 1990s was, I had barely made $45,000 in my first 7 years as a realtor. Each year, my top was 45 grand. I couldn't get over that number. And after being the manager with Prudential, and sitting there in that seat, observing other people, saying that the company model is better than an agent model. I went to about 10 grand a month GCI after that. Within 7 years, was at 100 grand GCI every 30 days for quite a few years. It was just doing things a little differently, having the owner mindset and building that business model, and not the typical model that we're taught, all right? So there's 3 kinds of thinkers. We're going to walk through this to find out where you're at. What I call flatlanders, focused people, or forward thinkers, right? Try to figure out where you're sitting at today. And I lived as a flatlander. For years, that I was in the 80-20 rule. We've all heard the 80-20 rule. I was in definitely the 80. I wasn't in the 20%. My goal was to be in the top 5%. Hello. And as a flatlander, I was taught that I should prospect every single day for at least an hour a day. Anybody heard that in the marketplace? We should be prospecting an hour a day. How many of us can really sustain that? Sustain prospecting every day, and how many people really enjoy it? Does anybody here say, I look forward to prospecting every single day? I know this. After a short time in the industry, we should only prospect for 6 to 24 months. That's about it. It should only be a season and no longer after that. When I hear people 10 years in the business still prospecting, no, our networking, our relationships should absolutely have taken over. And we should not have to prospect any longer, right? And as a flatlander, I found little time ever. It's the funniest thing. The top producers find time for refinement and skill building. But the people in the 80-20, in the 80%, the flatlanders, what I've discovered is they don't have any time. It's really what it's about, priorities. That's all it is. A shifting of priorities. When people say I don't have the time or the money, it's just priorities. If we shift those, we can then become what it is we really want to be. Flatlanders are also what I call the fire starters. They're in real estate transactions. There's fire starters, firefighters, and fire preventers. The fire preventers are the ones who write systems and take full responsibility for that whole transaction. Meaning, if I don't sell real estate any longer, but if I'm doing a deal with Keith Nash, and Keith brings the buyer to my transaction, I don't know how good he is or not, so I'm going to make the assumption that
Go ahead. You're right.
that maybe he isn't. Now, Keith's a great guy. But let's say he was brand new on his first transaction, and he's bringing an offer to me. It is incumbent upon me to oversee the whole transaction. To assume that he's going to know what he's going to do, or that his office has every single system in place, is really a little bit naive. It's my responsibility to lead the whole transaction and equip the other agents, help them out with deadlines and things like that. But it's all in the systems, right? And so forward thinkers, with our 5%ers, are really the people who are fire preventers. And they're writing systems to equip the other agent or involved in the transaction. And we're going to really unpack the quality thing this afternoon. And imagine you were interviewing today with your broker for the first time, or any particular brand, your insurance company, and you're going to go interview with a different broker, whatever the case. And when you find that sometimes if the company leads with a compensation plan in the conversation, they're leading with their strength. And if somebody's strength is their compensation plan, there's a problem. Because I know companies where agents can get almost all the revenue in the transaction, which means they're probably short on other things. Because what I'm trying to listen for, as I interviewed a lot of leadership in companies, is where does quality stand? Is quality, yeah, we believe in quality. We don't practice it. All you have to do is pull any company across the United States, almost any national franchise, and you look at two things: how much listing business they closed, and how much listing business they failed. I'm going to show you this afternoon a particular office in St. Louis that it's a pretty big office, national franchise. It closes around 53% of every 100 million. So that means they fail what? 47 times out of every 100. And we're going to talk about how to reduce that failure, because there's so much business that they're already control and they're losing. Because what happens to your loss if you lose a seller in a marketplace and they buy through somebody else? Can you get that client back? They're gone. And what about their relationships and their future referrals? They're all gone. So a lot of today also is figuring out the relationships that we currently have. What's the price to go out and get a new relationship? It's not a new listing, it's a new relationship, right? So quality is the responsibility of the forward thinker. And I'm hoping that, again, we're moving from flatlanders, because I lived as a flatlander, and I lived in really the focused time frame. But the real goal is that we live in the forward thinkers. And also, what I've heard about, I've interviewed and coached so many real estate agents, and insurance people and mortgage companies as well, is that flatlanders are really unaware how to make this doable. How do I do this? If I want to make $100,000 a year, or $50,000, or $200,000, or whatever it is, they don't really. It's a goal, but they don't know how it's doable. And what I like about the forward thinker's mindset is, you know what they do? They take you to the outcome. 3 years out from now, what's it going to look like? A year from now, what's it going to look like? We're going to visualize it. We're going to actually experience it. It's already going to happen. And we're going to work backwards from there. It's a real difference in planning is to, in your mind's eye, really see the outcome and then figure out all the obstacles and challenges that are along the way. And that's what I love about working with forward thinkers, is they know it's doable. In the flatlanders, our challenge is really a huge mindset that this is my goal, but I don't know if it's doable. I do not know how to do it, right? And a couple last things here. Flatlanders really live what I call the familiar zone, the comfort zone. I'm fine, don't push me. I'm not going to read any more books. I'm not going to take responsibility. Sorry to be harsh, but that's the reality of it. And as we move toward forward thinker, they're always self-educating. And maybe that's all of you today, because you're here, right? So we're all in that mindset. So we're going to move into now is identifying some of the best lead sources, right? And as I mentioned earlier about my experience as a manager and sitting in that seat as a manager, watching agents and watching lenders come into the office, back in the day when you could walk in offices and hand out rate sheets. Remember those? Those were fun days. Remember when the lender came in the room, everybody did this? Don't look. Just don't make eye contact with the lender. Just like buyers at open houses, just don't look at the realtor. So the best lead sources I discovered was the company model, not the agent model. And we talked about this earlier. The company owner mindset is, I'm walking away with wealth. Independent contractor, I'm walking away, period. You seen that in your offices? What do agents do when they retire? They just walk away. So we're going to build that model right now of how, when you do walk away, you walk away with a wealth stream, an income stream. Because as independent contractors, we really aren't set up for retirement unless you have a lot of discipline. And this is really what I'd call a retirement package, how to set up this transition. So I've got an idea. It's called Salesforce 5, right? And this is, again, about building a team. And personally, I think if you're an insurance salesperson, a realtor, or lender, you're either on a team or building a team, one or the other. You go, but Brian, I couldn't lead a group in small prayer or silent prayer. We'll show you how to do that today, right? So again, you're either on a team or leading a team. One of the first things that I realized about Prudential when I was the manager there was they're bringing lots of agents in. They weren't doing lead generation. They were counting on us, the realtors, to do lead generation. All the national brands, all the companies are bringing in salespeople. So we're going to talk about how you can attract other industry specialists to follow you and bring business to you. And then we have what I call real-time producers. And for you lenders, the real-time producer is who in your life? That's the realtor. The realtor who's literally at the point of sale writing up the offer. Same with title companies. We want the realtor to fill in the title company name at the point of sale. We want the home protection plan at the point of sale. And if I'm the insurance agent, I want the loan officer at the point of sale, because the loan officer usually is the one who's coordinating things like homeowners insurance, that kind of a thing. Because that decision is not made when the offer's done, right? It's not done until later. So we're going to show how all these groups tie together and how they can be lead generation sources for you and have them all coming to you. And then lastly, we'll talk about advisors with influence. And that's, how do you find people in the marketplace that have business to give right now, but they're not sending it to you? I'm talking about 5 or 10 deals per year consistently from one source, right? So let's go ahead and start with, here's a major concept I want you to think about. That all these people up here are your extended sales force, right? As an agent at a particular company, if you're at Coldwell Banker, let's say, you are really the executive sales force of the company. And then people you bring on are your extended sales force. So anybody here that's on a team? I know, Corey, you're on a team, right? And with Stephanie. And so you are her extended sales force. When I was an agent, I had 12 agents on my team. They were not buyer's agents for me. That's part of what they did, but they were my extended sales force. If I would become a lender right now, I wouldn't go out making all my own contacts. I'd find other people that have contacts and have them join my team. I'd just lead the team. Because it's easier to find a lead generator than it ever is to become one. And they're all around us. They're in your office. They're not hard to find other people to join you. You just got to cast the vision. So the extended sales force is really what the 5 and the 5 and the 5 is. This is no prospecting. This is no blind marketing. It's just making presentations. And we all do that already, don't we? We just make presentations. But we're going to change who we're making that presentation to. Okay? So I have a question for you. We have how many insurance people are in here? Okay, about 4 or 5. Okay. I got a question for you. If we had an advisor with influence, let's say that would be a lender, Dan, right? And the question is, if you had one lender sending you business each year, let's just say five deals, just 5 deals. Because Dan and I have had this conversation before. And you start saying, okay, what is a lender worth to you that sends you 5 transactions? Or Tom, we've been working together for a while, and he's one of those people who've been to over 10 of these events. And I don't think Tom and Steve are slow. I think they're wise. Why they're here again. And so when we look at, Tom, if you had one builder sending you business in a year, what's the value of having one relationship with that builder? What would you say?
Well, in 2012, halfway through the year, it was nearly 50% of my income.
So Tom and I worked on that. He wanted to find advisors with influence. And so he obtains one, and he gets 50% of his business from that one source. So what should Tom do now? Get another one. And another one. How many should Tom get? 5. We do not want to have one relationship in the particular industry. One of the things that I did was work with divorce attorneys. Do you know that divorce attorneys carry about 20-something clients at a time? And they close around 60 to 70 family units a year. 50% or higher of those people have to sell a house. Not want to, have to. How many people have divorce attorneys sending them 10 units a year right now? Does anybody know people who are getting divorced? Unfortunately. So we know there's a steady supply, and I've interviewed divorce attorneys over the years for this product, and discovered that it's pretty consistent. They carry 20 or so families per month. They close 60 to 70 units, and over half of those have to sell a property. And none of us are getting leads from that source. And there's, unfortunately, a lot of people go through the divorce. So that's just one idea. By the way, think about your average transaction. If you've got 5 transactions per year, just 5 from a lead generator, an advisor with influence, how much is that? I want you to write that number down and to say, if you got 5 transactions, if you are a real estate agent, a loan officer, and you can see I have ideas up here. For the realtor, I have estate liquidators, in case, Tom's case, builders, right? If you're a lender, divorce attorneys need lenders. Believe it or not, they need a lender more than they need a realtor. That's the first request of the divorce attorneys, was we need the lender to find out if the husband or wife can buy each other out of the property and can refinance off, or to buy the next property. So the insurance rep, what's a really good loan officer valued? So here's what I'm going to look for right now, are some numbers from you here in the audience to say, if you got 5 to 10 transactions a year from one person and become their referral source, what's that worth? Karen, do you have something? I'm going to call on people if nobody raises their hand.
Dollar amount, are you looking for?
Dollar, right. Commissions?
Probably say it's worth between $25,000 and $30,000.
My high-low estimate is 25 to 50. That a single relationship hopefully has the